we're in the process of moving to a digital case file, which means from entry until the exit, and the exit be it the settlement letter or the award or the matter is being referred to your labor court, where we then have to provide the case file. All those will be digital from start to end. You're going down your steps and then you trip and you actually get injured. But you are at work, because the Lord didn't say, well, it said at the place of work. Your place of work has now become your home too. This is where the law has to come and catch up with what technology has brought. It is impossible to think that all those 24 regional offices touches every part of this country. Through technology, we can be able to extend and bring the CCMA office to your desk or to your home, to your lounge, to your kitchen, to your bedroom, to your shack, that you can be able to refer a matter in the comfort of your home. Of course, there is a challenge of data.
Hello, welcome to another episode of ITWeb TV. My name is Simnikwe Mzekandaba. Today in studio, we're joined by the CIO at the CCMA, Nkosikhona Nkosi, and he joins us to just chat to us about the CCMA's digital transformation strategy, what they've been up to for the past 5 years, and what technologies the organization is implementing to improve its processes. Nkosikhona, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm good. As just to get us started, I think a lot of us are familiar with the CCMA, and we were just joking about the long
acronym.
So we'll just call it the CCMA. But we're familiar with it. But just if you can just briefly explain to the viewers in terms of what exactly is its mandate and how its significance in terms of the labor market.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to you as well as the people who be watching this. I think the CCMA was established in 1996, and its mandate, it's in the labor space. So for most of us who are employed or who are an employer or both, at the times there can be disputes that arises between the employer and the employee. And part of the role then of CCMA, thus the name conciliation, is to be able to conciliate, to try and see if there is a dispute that has been referred to it, to the institution, that they conciliate, to try and get the parties to see if they cannot be able to resolve the matter between themselves. And then, of course, if that fails, then we then arbitrate on that particular matter, where then an award is now the decision of the commissioner who was arbitrating to come with the award. But beyond that, there's also mediation. I mean, interestingly, as I was coming here on the news, the flight, the airline that its workers are on strike. There's current mediation that is taking place, and guess who is actually assisting the parties to find each other on that collective agreement? It's the CCMA, and it's one of many other interventions that have come and brought in the labor market. But why do this? Part of what would encourage an investor to come and invest in an economy is a stable country, and part of the stability again, you get it from the labor market. So if there is less disruptions in terms of strikes, which we're gonna talk about, that's when we talk about labor peace. And the labor peace is what we're striving to achieve, where both in terms of organization-wise, but two, also in terms of the individuals, where there are disputes, that we try and resolve those disputes. And where possible, we try and assist even parties before the disputes happen, that we prevent those disputes. So that's part and parcel of what we are mandated to do as an institution.
Okay. So it's not just necessarily representing like a big airline, but also the employees as well. So it's both.
Yes. So
let me put it this way, not necessarily just a big organization, but also individuals within the labor market.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is why when I started it, to say, let's consider you and your employer, and there is a dispute between the two of you. And part of that dispute could be you've been dismissed. So it will be you as a person. And then, of course, there are also organizational rights. And there are sometimes disputes at the organizational rights perspective, as we're seeing in that airline, where there is a representative of employees negotiating with the employer and its management on things like wages, conditions of employment, amongst other stuff. So, but as an individual, when you have been dismissed or you have suffered discrimination in the place of work, we are the place to come to, and we get to do the conciliation and arbitration of those matters.
Okay. In your role, you are in the exco, but yours is more on an IT, on the IT space as the CIO for the organization. So if you could just tell us more in terms of how is like technology assisting the CCMA in terms of like strengthening its oversight and how it actually delivers its mandate.
So,
It's a bit of a broad one.
very broad, I know, but I think what is interesting is that I'm the first person to be the chief information officer at the organization.
Sorry to interrupt you. The organization has never had a CIO.
Yes.
Okay.
But they've had IT as just one role that is given into some GM. I think it was GM for operations. So IT was just one of those little things, but it was not somebody with any IT background. But I think it just shows and reflects where the organization's thinking and the value and the role they see insofar as IT is concerned. That this has to be elevated and be driven by somebody as a department. So we're no longer just a unit in a particular department, but we are actually a fully fledged department on our own. But two, just coming into the organization to say, this, how do we then get to show the value proposition that IT can do or can bring to the table to elevate the organization? So I joined, it was in 2019 at the beginning of the year. The organization, in terms of the IT, we're sitting with quite a lot of very old audit findings that have been sitting unclosed. We didn't have a disaster recovery in place. We didn't have a video conferencing solution. Don't look at me like that. But I mean, it's part and parcel of reflecting of when you do not have somebody who actually has an IT background heading the IT division. So part of what we've then done with the technology was, first and foremost, how do we make sure that we get the basics right? Ensuring that there is DR in place, there is infrastructure that is going to be able to enable the organization to take on newer technologies without the basics failing and crumbling. Cybersecurity, getting the right people to do the job, and then be able to come and say, as part of what we want to get for managing or ensuring that IT delivers on the business need. One, we need to have an IT strategy that speaks to the business strategy. Two, as part of our APP, which are part of the APP of the organization, part of what we're promising is the availability of systems at this particular rate. By the way, at the time when we came up with these indicators, our performance was not great. Our main system, case management solution or system, was really having a whole lot of outages. Our ERP was also not available as much as it's supposed to be, so that we need to have these measurements so that then IT has to go and up its game to be able to deliver that. So what has happened and what technology has allowed the institution to be able to do is, from the audit perspective, when we are being audited, not just as an IT but as an organization, in our core mandate, they should be able to find the case file on the systems, which means the systems must make sure that the data is there, it's authentic, it's accountable, it's auditable, that they can be able to see if there are any changes that have been done on the data that are not, correct, and vis-a-vis what is sitting on the case file, the physical one. But two, how do we actually enable the organization to do its core mandate? The core mandate being to conciliate, arbitrate, and all. And I think if one looks and reflects back on 2020 when COVID hits us, there was lockdown. We're able to still accept referrals on our digital platforms. We were able to do arbitrations with virtual hearings, which if the IT had not, that foundation had not been established and stable, we were not going to be able to get there. But importantly, from the cybersecurity perspective, I mean, we're one of those institutions in the public sector that were never hacked during the COVID, and you would remember how many of the virtual meetings were uninvited guests and with very funny intentions would come into those. So from the April 2020, we had our governance meetings in terms of the board done virtually and not a single incident because we never used Zoom. We were already on Microsoft Teams in April 2020. And so IT has enabled the organization to be able to provide the auditability of what we're doing in terms of the core mandate of our work. But two is provide the platforms to also increase access to the institution, which you had to come with other ways to access to be accessible to the public when the public could not come to your offices during the lockdown.
Okay. And so your team is made up of yourself, and how big is the team that actually now it's like from how I understand what you were saying is that the IT department became front of mind at board level now.
Yeah.
So now how big is your team and who is in that team?
So the team, we're sitting at about 25 people. We've got a couple of vacancies. Who's in the team from cybersecurity analysts to developers to infrastructure engineers, amongst other things. But we also do use quite a lot of outside services from various vendors that are local to develop new systems, including our main system that we work on that is currently in being development. But we've tried, and one of the things that I've been intentional about is how do we build the internal capacity to be able to ensure that sustainability is built. Well, later on when we speak on AI, I'll tell you some of the work that we've done to build also the same internal capacity internally so that we can be able to start to build our own AI solutions, amongst other things. So it's not as big as considering that you're dealing with and managing almost 1,000 employees in the organization, and you're responsible for provision of services across the whole country. And so we're all at the head office. We've got other people that are seconded to us through each of the offices as our first line of support, but they're not part of IT per se.
All right. And you mentioned there's a new system that's in development. So what is it going to do?
Yeah.
Like if you are, whatever you can share with us in
Yeah.
terms and timelines.
Yeah. So our main core system right now is case management system, which is meant to and built to manage the cases when they're referred to us until you've got the award or the settlement letter if the matter is ended in the conciliation stage. Built on Java with the Oracle as a back end. But what is the limitation with that solution? It's a thick client solution. It means for you to access it, you need to use a computer. You can't access it on the web. Two, you need to be an employee of CCMA. But CCMA has a bit of a complexity in the sense that 2/3 of our commissioners are part-time commissioners, which means are independent contractors. So, which means the majority of our commissioners actually cannot even access that system. So, what we're now building is a web platform. But the web platform is beyond just the CMS. It's consolidating multiple of disparate systems that we've built over time. What is the thinking around it is we're in the process of moving to a digital case file, which means from entry until the exit, and the exit be it the settlement letter or the award or the matter is being referred to your labor court, where we then have to provide the case file. All those would be digital from start to end. For you, what then the benefits of moving to that digital case file is, one, I think across the public sector, we all know that there's been like budget cuts experienced. Part of us to be able to deliver more because unfortunately, while the budget may be going down, our caseload continues to increase almost in the 5 years. I think it increased by almost 35% from the beginning of that 5-year strategy to the end. That's just continuous. It continues to increase. And of course, when you consider the number of retrenchments that are happening in the labor market, some of the employers don't follow the processes, or sometimes they follow the processes, but the employees are feeling that justice was not done in how I was retrenched. Then they refer the matter to CCMA. So to say, how do we, one, be able to use all our resources at our disposal efficiently and effectively? So if you think of a commissioner, right now, the current setup, we've got 25 offices, including the head office. So the 24 are regional offices. In these 24 regional offices, you've got commissioners allocated per each office. It's good and bad. There is a process we use to determine how many commissioners you need. You use your case load, which always looks back, not looking at what is coming. And then we say your caseload is 20% of the caseload of the organization. So you'll have about commissioners about 20%. But not at any given time will you always consistently be having 20% of the caseload. How do you make sure that we can be able to use our resources, regardless of which office they're allocated to conciliate, to arbitrate on matters, regardless of the office they're at? And without a digital case file, that is not possible. So we are moving to a digital case file, consolidating all of those systems, using technology at the core of it. And part of that journey would include also our WhatsApp chatbot, which is a generative AI that we've built together with our partner, a vendor, to enable you as a user who's bringing a matter to CCMA to capture your referral on using your WhatsApp, because WhatsApp is quite very pervasive in the country. I think there are over 33 million subscribers that I mentioned. Over and above that cell phone is much more easier for an average South African to use than a computer to submit referrals. So to say, how can we enable you as a user to capture the referral at the comfort of your home and submit it in the platform that is familiar to you? And that is also part of that value chain of moving from a digital case file from the start of the journey right up until you get the award.
Okay. So like what you were mentioning now around a Gen AI tool, WhatsApp tool. So my question was, how are you using, or are you using AI? So it seems like you guys are.
We are. We are. You've started the journey.
Yes. And how is that journey? Like, if you can paint a picture for us in terms of, because we know that artificial intelligence, Gen AI, is quite pervasive, and a lot of local companies are also playing in that space. What does that look like for you guys?
Interestingly, 5 years ago, that's one of the ideas that we had, that we should be able to find a way to enable the submission of a referral using WhatsApp, because it's a familiar environment. I mean, if you consider who is the CCMA user, it's domestic worker, somebody who works for you and I. They're an employee. They've got equal rights as you and I working in a corporate space. They can refer matters to CCMA. Your farm worker, your cleaner at the office, your security guard, your corporate person, so these are all the people that we have to serve who are employees. And that's why when I started the conversation, I said some of us, we are employees but also are employers, because we've employed somebody who cleans your garden as a gardener. That's an employee of yours. They have the same equal rights as you do whilst you are at CCMA as an employee of CCMA. So how do we use AI in a manner that is responsible? And with the Gen AI and the chat GPTs that have come about, have then made it easier to come and say, let's look at the options on when to use AI. So we've went to the process of getting the development of the chat GPT. The chat bot for referrals. Can be able to capture a referral, track your case, get notifications in terms of when we servicing notices, arbitrations. You can be able to chat to a case management officer on your WhatsApp when there are questions that you want to ask and you cannot find the answers from frequently asked questions. But two, one of the pilot projects or proof of concept that we've been busy with is a transcription service. The transcription service is internally focused to assist the commissioner.
All right.
The commissioner, at the end of hearing an arbitration, been recorded either on a mobile recorder that you have or using our digital system, which is JEVS or Justice Audio Video System, where it's got cameras and microphones and it's able to record the arbitration. Sometimes the arbitrations can take days. At the end of that arbitration, the commissioner has exactly 14 days to have the award out.
Okay.
And the 14 days, doesn't matter whether it's a public holidays, over Christmas or whatever the case might be, 14 days, 14 calendar days must be out. So the effort of going through ensuring that the award reflects what happened in the arbitration, it can be an enormous work because of the amount of having to really listen to what happened in the arbitration. So what we're trying to do is to build, through use AI, to build or at least give you the transcript of what was recorded. It's easier to read the transcript, it's easier to search in the transcript than to search on the recorder. But two, then take the transcript, give you a shortened version summary of it. Out of that, be able to also of at least find you case law in terms of labor court judgments, your labor appeals court, as well as constitutional court, so that it's easier for you to at least to assist in the process that it takes as a commissioner to do the award. That we've given you the data, here's a transcript, you still have the recording, here's a shortened version, and here are the case law that we think might be relevant to your matter. Because part of what the award is, if you're a court of law, you are not a tribunal, it would be a judgment. So that is, it has got to be sounded and based in law, based on the evidence given and the case that has been brought to you as a commissioner. And at times, it takes a while for somebody who may be junior as a commissioner to come and give you quality awards. And part of what we're using AI is say, how can you bridge that gap by, giving you the tools at your disposal to be able to get awards done as quickly as possible.
So also maybe streamlining processes within that, let's say, a commissioner would need to do.
Yes, because what we hope and trust is that as a commissioner, for you to come to an award, you are going to do the research.
Yeah.
To see what case law says, what the law says, what code of good conduct says, and all of that. But not everybody is a starter. So maybe if we can just try and assist to bring as much information at your disposal. Of course, you still have to be responsible for writing the award, to read what comes as out of that case law. But at the very least, we're using technology to say, how can we make your life easier? Yeah.
And would it not be, not necessarily, I don't want to use the word ideal, that there are platforms that allow for like these types of transcription? So is it a matter of that because the commissioner can't put on that audio onto a public platform, that it's not allowed, for lack of a better word, that they wouldn't be able to use a platform outside of the CCMA?
I see where you're going. We're busy with the AI use policy right now to try and deal with some of those things.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, there are laws that govern things that we work with. You cannot be publishing an award as an institution. So we can't have them publicly available. So if you go and take that recording, you use a freely available AI tool to transcribe for you. Always remember that as you put that information, it's you're not gonna say tell it delete it after you've done this transcription. And if at some point somebody is able to find that information that relates to a particular case, then we as an institution would have failed that user and our responsibility insofar as the issue of privacy and all of that. So part of it is to try and say, how can you build those that can be trusted, and you know what you use, it's contained and it's only confined within the confines of CCMA, and not doesn't go out there to the rest of the world and the web. So yeah.
We know, like, most of us are on social media. We use social media for various as an outlet, express
To
different
vent.
views, to vent. But we've also, I think we've seen some instances where, let's say, company X or employee would put company X into disrepute, and then it would result in the dismissal of an employee. Is that allowed?
You know, where to answer this, it's always simpler when you are the one doing the act, that you think it's my personal time, my account, using my device, I'm not at work. Why should it matter? But if you think of it, somebody who spews racist stuff on their social media account, you come for an interview and they're there, they're the hiring manager, and you are the same kind of people they say the worst of things about. Don't you think that you would be entitled to feel that you are not going to get a fair interview out of that process? So unfortunately, we can't have two versions of ourselves, where when I'm at work, I'm not a racist person, but when I'm at work, when I'm outside, I'm a racist person, or I am anti-Semitic person outside of work, but at work I am comfortable to work with people who are Jewish. It's so hard to understand how the two can coexist in the same person. So yes, it's your personal view, but your personal views have to be considered that you are publishing them to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world will judge you based on that. And when you sit there in the world of work and the person sees you, it becomes so hard to say, how do I divorce that what I've read on yesterday or last night to the person that is sitting here next to me today. So that's what we have to think about. Is yes, you are free to say we live in the world and the country where there's freedom of speech, but there are limitations to what we can and can't say. To go and say things that are demeaning to women and then come back to work and say, I can have junior staff members of mine being females and I treat them as equals to me and to other men, yet I'm saying demeaning things about women in the social media. It's just so hard to understand and believe that the two can coexist. So those are things that you have to consider. But over and above that, I mean, as long as the company is able to identify that it was you who posted the stuff. By the way, if it was your account, if it's someone else who used your phone, it's on you. But two, it's important that companies too have clear policies regarding to social media use. Thirdly, if an employee is found to be suspected to have transgressed, that a fair disciplinary action and process is conducted. And if out of that fair disciplinary action, the chairperson says, we think this was too, it's too hard not to ignore, but over and above that, to have this person working in the institution, that within the disciplinary action comes and says we recommend dismissal and dismissed. You're more than welcome to bring the matter to CCMA if you feel the process was not fair. But if we cannot find anything in the process and what you have actually done to be outside of what should be expected of an employee, it will be harder for us to rule in your favor, to say you must be reemployed or whatever the case might be.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. And I suppose with how, in light of what you were saying around clear policies around social media,
Yeah.
so many platforms are mushrooming, and we are also in the space of AI, like we say, and there's a lot of fake stuff that's out there. So I think maybe it is time that maybe to revisit those policies as well, hey? Like if a company did have them and they're now looking at the time that we are in and how we have TikTok now, and it's, things are not the same.
And sadly, I mean, some of those platforms most times can be used for very great value,
Yes.
but at times they can also be abused.
Mm.
And unfortunately, when we're talking about freedom of expression, people go and say the worst of things about you as a commissioner, for instance, in the context of CCMA, that you've taken a bribe, post it on TikTok, but they cannot prove that you've taken any bribe. Just because you did not give the ruling that is in their favor, then they say ITWeb must have paid you. Otherwise, my case was very strong. But I mean, where unfortunately, where people do not understand that what the law has allowed, that the commissioner can make a mistake. You've got the ability to go and have the award reviewed at your labor court,
Okay.
so that you can prove. But whilst the person does not do that, they have said it in the social media that you are corrupt. And they can even name you at times, and that is part of the things that are being tricky with social media, is that where it's a free for all. We say whatever we want. People use all sorts of funny names, thinking they can hide their identities. But I think what is more worrying though with AI is we've seen people where there's a video of somebody talking and it's actually that is not that person. It's imposed on. If you're not paying attention, you would really be believing that this is what happened. We've seen the fakes of videos of people being trampled on by, a car being trampled on by an elephant, or it was actually lots of elephants. It was all AI created. So AI is just going to get us to a point where you'll be accused that you've posted something that you did not even post. That's where the question is, how do we then prove? So our commissioners have got to also keep up
Yes.
with the technology and what is happening in the technology, so that when they are hearing matters, they are conscious of actually how do we have the understanding of the technology. And AI is one of those. I've had engagements with them, I think, about a year ago, where it was a commissioner's day. And I said, we're going to be getting very interesting cases. Because if you think of AI, some of the people are using it, your LinkedIn, for instance, to come and show you the vacancies that they think are relevant to you, and how we think your CV is better suited for this role, or whatever the case might be. Others are using it to sift out and shortlist CVs for vacancies. How do we ensure that that process has no biases in them? It's fair, it's transparent, it's auditable, that you can be able to go back and say, can you make me understand why I was not shortlisted for the particular role? And it cannot just be that, oopsie, we don't know that the AI did that. But importantly, there's been some interesting developments also in the legal space. I don't know if you've heard of one of the cases where the legal firm submitted heads of argument that was written by AI.
Yes.
And it had references to the case law that didn't exist. So those are some of the things that are happening, and our employees are using AI, whether we approve of it or we don't.
And then I suppose it also speaks to the evolution of the world of work, because we are not where we are pre-COVID.
But-
Things have escalated to levels that we probably didn't even anticipate. So how does then this evolution allow the CCMA to actually perform? How are you dealing with how are you dealing with it?
We're talking about the changes of the world of work. If you think 10 years ago, we didn't have Uber. And Uber is one of those amongst the e-hailing companies that have used technology to come and revolutionize industries that have existed. Your Airbnb, they've got hotels, the largest number of hotels that they own, not a single hotel. Part of what that has changed is it's changing the world of work and redefining who's an employer and who's an employee.
Yeah.
In the case of Uber, and Uber still insists that the drivers who drive for Uber don't work for Uber. And
They don't have any employees. Like
Basically, they've got drivers who are freelancers and independent contractors. So the gig economy and the gig working is not just only limited to that, because it's so easy to think of Uber. I mean, if you then think in the domestic workers platforms, that the platforms you can get a domestic worker tomorrow. You're hoping that that company that is bringing them on has done the interviews and all, but these people are not working for that company as well. They're gig workers, just like the Uber drivers, and they're domestic workers. So it's not even just like in the IT space, which you do have even gig workers who are working in the IT space, who are working in companies in UK and US while they're based here, with no formal contracts. Part of what all of this is not just the South African issue, it's an international issue. How do we redefine the context of employer and employee relations? But two, how do we ensure that if somebody is working for a company that is in US, which labor laws apply to them?
That's an interesting one.
These are some of the things, that the questions that we have to do and answer as an institution in the context of those in South Africa, but also in terms of the International Labour Organization at the international level, to say, how do we redefine these rules to ensure that there is fairness, there is justice, there's people are treated fairly, people are paid what they're worth. We've got minimum wage in this country. How to ensure that these platforms are abiding by those acts that you have that govern us as a country. So it's beyond just the policy for you as an employer, but the technology has become so pervasive that we have to rethink a whole lot of work. I mean, just from the context of CCMA, I think about probably 96 or 98% of the staff at the head office, they work remotely. This year, I've probably been at the office like not even 10 times.
Since you start,
Since the beginning of the year. If I go back from March 2020 to now, I don't even think we get to 20 times that we've been at the office in that period. But we've actually been able to do a whole lot more. At some point, we achieve 100% of our EPP. We've got 4 consecutive, as an organization, clean audits. And also part of the moving to the digital case file is to enable the colleagues who are in the regional offices to that half of the time, half the staff is at the office, the half is working remotely. Because now we can enable, you are doing administration, you can be able to hear the administration and do the administration for 2 weeks of the month at home. Importantly, part of where the digital platforms have also allowed us is I can hear a matter. I know that at the Labour Court, I think there was a case that they were doing on virtual platform on Teams, and then the power went off. They switched on to WhatsApp video call. It's part of those platforms that can be able to start to do and enable people to come and act, but and participate in these platforms. But there are complexities that come with even things like working hybrid. There are employers who had said during COVID, no, you're not going to be coming back ever again. You're going to be working remotely. And then they changed to once a month, to once a week, to twice a week, to now everybody comes back to the office. Where the individuals have changed so much of their lives on the basis that we're going to be working virtually most of the times. Now suddenly I must be at the office Monday to Friday. So those are some of those things that aren't changing the terms of employment by now deciding that you literally decide that I must come back to the office. So those are some of the things that we have to deal with, that technology has brought to our fore.
And do you find that employees do approach the CCMA in that instance of, we were told we'd be working remotely for the foreseeable future, but now we're told to come back to the office, and I've moved to the coast and I was here?
That has happened. And not just only that. I mean, there's one case in the Western Cape where the employee had a sick kid. They requested that the kid requires so much attention. Can they work remotely? And they did. The employer allowed it. And then at some point, the employer decided and said, next week you must come back to the office. No, but I was given permission. They're like, no, you must come back to the office. Next week, the employer didn't page, because they're like, there is no ways I haven't got enough time for me to organize somebody to look after my kids, making sure that, they can be taken care of. Is me coming to the office Monday to Friday? It's that, yes, it's Monday to Friday. Like, that is not going to work. Then they fired the employee and they referred the matter to CCMA for unfair dismissal. And they did win the matter, the employee.
But they didn't go back to the office. I mean, to that job, did they? Or were they allowed to go back to the job? Or what?
I don't remember what was the final award,
Yeah.
but it was even taken for review to the Labour Court.
Course, yeah.
And the Labour Court confirmed the CCMA award that it was unfair dismissal.
Yeah.
So you can't, as an employer, change the conditions of employment on your own, especially if they're going to impact that is like think of ITWeb deciding that, we're deciding we're going to move to Durban. You've got a month. We're closing this office, a month to go find a place in Durban. I didn't join the organization with the basis of being based in Durban. It is so much of me that I have to change around my kids and whatever else, if you've got kids. But that has to be a process to go about to change those things, and agreement. And unfortunately, at times, you can understand organizations have got buildings that they've got leases on. They're like, we need bodies here to justify why we're paying the millions for this building that is unoccupied.
Yeah. Given how things are changing, given how we are, there's such a shift to our labor laws, because obviously our labor laws do not speak to the times of where we are in. So then does that mean that also needs to be adapted to? Those need to be adapted to current situations.
It's very hard and difficult to continuously keep up that the rate, considering the rate at which technology is changing. If you think that the process of just coming and do amendments of the law takes years before it is actually signed, and by the way, it can sit for a number of months before the president attaches their signature. So I mean, one of the questions that our director asked us as EXCO, that if you get injured at work, you can go and claim compensation through Department of Employment and Labor, injury at work. What happens when you're working from your house? During office hours,
you claim from yourself.
You were going down your steps and then you trip and you actually get injured. But you are at work, because the law didn't say, well, it said at the place of work. Your place of work has now become your home. This is where the law has to come and catch up with what technology has brought. And at times I always remind colleagues when they are apologizing for kids making noise, like, we are the ones invading your space, and it's their space too that they share with you. We've now made it a place of work as well. Yes, it makes it easier for the employee, but it also helps us as an employer that we can shrink the size of offices we use. But it brings a whole lot of complexities, as I said. These are some of the cases that I don't think have been tested. What happened? Can you go and claim COIDA and whilst you got injured at your house and while you were working?
Sure. I want to go back to something that you said around the gig economy and gig workers. And if I'm based here in SA, but I'm employed abroad by a company abroad, which labor laws is company X following? Like, what is that? I didn't think of it until you mentioned it.
I shouldn't have met.
No, so I was just like, oh, yeah, I never thought of that, because our laws are very much, please correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of protecting the employee to a large extent. But what you find in other countries that I won't mention names is that it doesn't work the same. You can't just, you can
hire and fire.
Yeah. But so how does that situation work then for gig workers? Like, what?
So it really will depend on the contract that you're signing.
Alright.
But it's part of those things that, again, we are saying the law has to catch up, because if your employer is in US and you are based here 100% of the time, do they apply the US laws? From the contract perspective, is how do they even ensure that it's in line with our laws here? But it's really, really important that people are aware that, whilst the laws have not been clearly defined, insofar as these aspects are concerned, there are risks that goes with it, and if you think that the benefit from the risk is worth more than the risk itself, then it's a risk worth taking. As I said, I mean, just I was talking of now, you can't be working for a company abroad. In most instances, you're actually based at your home. I mean, they go as far as even accountants that they're working in this company. So it's not just developers or call center people. So we need to come and find ways to say how the law actually defines this, and who is this even an employee or an independent contractor to that company. In most instances, that company sees them as an independent contractor, which is different even in our context in South Africa, because an independent contractor is not an employee of CCMA, for instance. And as our part-time commissioners are not employed by us, we tell them that we need you to have the digital tools to hear matters digitally, but we don't provide you those.
No. Why?
We can't, because you're not an employee. Once you provide you those, then you've got every right to go and say, I should then get leave and get all other benefits of employees.
Sure. Just with tools.
Tools of trade, yeah.
And if we're looking at, the CCMA has a lot of data within its.
Don't remind me of
that. Says a lot.
It's my pet peeve, yeah.
So what measures are in place to actually protect, to make sure that people's data isn't
isn't compromised and end up in the wrong hands?
Yeah.
I think we've been fortunate thus far that our firewalls and cybersecurity, work has kept us safe from cyber threats and intruders who come and take the information and then ask you to pay to get it back, or else they publish it. But then, of course, like any other institution, nobody can ever guarantee that you can never be hacked. But two,
a matter of when.
Hopefully never. So we have to continuously and consistently be ensuring that we do vulnerability assessment, penetration testing on continuous basis. Where vulnerabilities are identified, we close them up. But importantly, the data doesn't just sit on the systems; it also sits on papers. And part of what I've said that at work, that sometimes we take for granted the case files that are lying around in people's offices, and don't think that is also data. We think of data when we think of it sitting in a system. That with the wrong hands, that case file can find itself in the wrong place if somebody throws it away by mistake or whatever the case might be. So we have to continuously ensure that we all our processes are in line with POPIA. If there are any breaches that happen or any data that got lost, we ensure that we keep the information regulator aware. Part of the devices we use is those digital recorders. We've got commissioners who go and, firstly, we've got multiple hearing rooms in each and every office. We've got other hearing rooms in other offices that are outside the 24 I've mentioned, so outside venues. They use those mobile recorders to record the arbitration. By law, we have to keep this for life. And at times, this thing can be stolen. It can be lost. You can overwrite the arbitration hearing that you did last week because you forgot that you've not downloaded it and all of that. So, but we've tried to use IT to bring in technology. Like if you do the arbitration via your Microsoft Teams, for instance, it's recorded. On the JAVS, which is a Justice Audio and Video System, it records. All of those are secured and stored in our cloud. So there's so many ways to lose that information, but by law, we still have the data from as back as November 1996 on our systems and the physical case files till to date.
What's the ratio, physical and data on?
Of course, there will be more on. No, actually, there'll be the same, because even a digital system. I mean, our case management system started when we opened in 1996. So we've been building on it. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of data. And with the case, the physical cases, and now we have to pay somebody to archive these things back from 1996 to today. Next year it's going to be exactly 30 years later.
Yeah, sure.
And still going on keeping more. So part of why we want to move to digital case file as well is to at least lessen the amount of physical case files, so that going forward, by this time next year, we should start to see a decrease on the ones that are sitting on the physical platforms and the ones that are sitting on the digital platforms.
Okay. All right. How are you guys modernizing, legacy systems while ensuring funds are not wasted?
So I come from the banking world. I've seen IT leaders spending billions of rands on systems that do half what was said to be the benefit in the business case. And I think one, as a leader, I've not been married to let's go and get the latest technology whenever it becomes available. Is one. Two, to say how do we find and make sure that when you go and get technology services and tools, what is the business case? What is it that you're trying to solve insofar as the business is concerned? Three, ensure that we can't go over the budget if we've gone and procured your services. It has to be done within that. Not unless we come up with extra work that we had not thought of at the time we went to the market. And I think probably it's indicative that we've been able to get 5 years of clean audit, that we have not been making silly decisions. When we get contracts and licenses for systems, let's make sure that we know the numbers, that the people that we're saying we need 20 contracts are going to be used. We don't end up buying 50 contracts when you only need to use 5, and you're paying for the 50 for the next 3-5 years. So it's take the originality of it. When we're getting a system, what are we getting it for? Now, dealing with the legacy systems, I mean, our case management system right now, I've just told you that it's a thick client, not fit for purpose for what we need now. So we're building on it, the platform that will enable this elephant to deliver. In between that, we're building the APIs that are going to be working with this older version or the legacy case management system, building the latest microservices based front end that we're going to be moving towards sometime next year, still getting the data from the same old one. So when we then try and now do the work to uplift this to get it to be the latest through your APIs, becomes easier to switch between the older version to the newer one. That can be much more easier to work with than what we currently have. So is a pragmatic approach of not just go and throw everything out and say let's start something scratch, but how do we build on what we have, where we already have something. Where we don't have, becomes easier when your chatbots, your e-referral to say, but also to say, even with doing the e-referral or the WhatsApp chatbot, it can't be the replica of the paper. It needs to enhance what the paper can do. For instance, are you able to actually explore things of multilingualism in your digital platforms? Are you able to explore to cater for people with visual impairment in your chatbot, that it can do text to audio, audio to text, which is what a paper cannot do? So it's not just build and then say we just gonna make it mimic what is sitting on the paper.
And do you think you have enough budget to achieve all of this?
As I said, I mean, what we had planned with the digital case file, we thought by this time would be fully on a digital case file, but we had budget cuts, and they got severe and severe in the last 2 financial years, and this is the 3rd financial year. We're hoping that after that we might be, getting lesser of the budget cuts, and so when you then consider that part of the budget cuts have gone and cut to the core of what we do as an institution, which has now resulted, and you might have seen in the social media, the complaints when people talk of CCMA. They complain about they've referred a matter for an arbitration. They're sitting, it's 2 months later, there is no arbitration that has happened. It is now taking us almost 3-4 months for us to be able to sit down or have a sit down of the arbitration, because the part-time commissioners that we pay, who are independent contractors, when the budget gets cut, that's why we have to cut the number of days that they can be available. So you can't then say, no, give me money to give you the systems whilst we are filling the pitch. But at the same time, part of what we've done, I mean, just to show the business case, the value that we can be deriving as an institution moving into that will be deriving as an institution moving to the digital case file. One, cutting down our printing cost, which are sitting at close to 8 million rands a year. That frees day that can buy you a number of days for commissioners. Two, as we enable the hybrid working model, we can shrink the size of other regional offices. Our head office, I think, has shrunk by more than 70% to what it was when we were going to the office in 2019. That saves you cost. Whilst at the same time also you're saving the petrol cost or the fuel cost of the employees. So by moving to these using the technologies, part of the business case is saying this is what we can be able to save and use that money to then start to work on the backlog. I was talking about the efficiencies. If I can be able to use a commissioner regardless of which office, already I've taken the limitation of, oh no, I've got a vacancy of a commissioner in my office, so I can only do less one, I'm one man short. Whereas now I can be able to tap on other offices where there's available commissioners to hear my matters. So the digital case file and the technology bring the efficiencies that allows us. But of course, it's always a time of when do you invest, how much do you invest, when the pot is shrinking. And we had to be coming with creative ways on how do we do this. What are the stuff that we can do internally? What are the stuff that you can do through service providers? Yeah.
You mentioned the digital case file. If we're looking at the next 12 to 24 months, what else are the top 3 areas that strategic priorities for the CCMA?
Yeah. So the digital case file is number one, quite a critical one as part of our digital transformation, and then of course supported by the currently being developed dispute management system that will sit on the case management system. But two, growing our data analytics and AI capabilities and use cases that we have, quite a number of them, right up to internal audit amongst others. But over and above that, we want to have this capability internally, not dependent on external vendors. And then the third one is ensuring that we keep abreast insofar as cybersecurity is concerned.
And if you're sitting with that much data,
we cannot afford to be hacked, and we've seen how many public institutions as well as private institutions have been hacked, certainly including even banks. So we all have. I always say, when I'm asked this question, especially by the board, that one of the things that you need to remember: the people who are hackers, they are not just the what are those 411 scam that was happening with guys from Nigeria, or 499, those ones that, yes, no, they're not just some people who are in some funny little corner and working on some little computer. These are people most times highly skilled, one of the best minds in computer science, that they're hired by these companies to hack, and they are paid well.
Okay. And just as we, maybe one last one, just to what key metrics will you be using to kind of, measure the digital transformation that the CCMA has undergone?
So if you look at our command data, as I did say at the start of the conversation, we are not here just to exist for the sake of existing. We need to show the money that we are given from the fiscus. How do we use it to ensure that we not just only conciliate, mediate, and arbitrate disputes and resolve them, but we do so expeditiously, which means there has to be as quickly as possible that matters ahead. We cannot afford to have matters delayed. But two, issue of accessibility. You cannot provide social justice if accessing the institution is a hurdle. And mentioning that we've got 24 regional offices, it is impossible to think that all those 24 regional offices touches every part of this country. Through technology, we can be able to extend and bring the CCMA office to your desk or to your home, to your lounge, to your kitchen, to your bedroom, to your shack, that you can be able to refer a matter in the comfort of your home. Of course, there is a challenge of data cost in the country. And part of the move to the chat, to WhatsApp, was WhatsApp is far less data intensive. But importantly is that the intention is to get, for me, would have really been achieve what digital transformation is supposed to be, where we can be able to have people be able to bring referrals to us, be able to track, be able to engage us without incurring as much cost as they do currently. Because in this country, we know most of the cost of people, especially those who are historically disadvantaged, they live as far away from the CBDs as possible. Our offices, you're going to find them in the CBDs. So it costs somebody money to come to our office to come and pick up the referral form. And then they go home to fill it up. Then they pay to come and bring it back. Then they go back home, and then they come to have a conciliation. And at times the other party does not pitch. Then they have to go back home. And then they have to come for the arbitration. All of that cost, by the time you get the award, how much you have spent to and fro. How do we make sure that we can be able to provide with tools that can lessen that drive? So instead of maybe you having the conciliation physically at our office, what about we do it on the telephone? So you don't have to come to us. If we've got a phone, we can call you on. We've got the employer on the other side. Let's do the conciliation. It has saved you money to come here. And if you've done your referral on your chatbot, you didn't have to come to us, to our offices to do it. And do the arbitration. Part of the things that we are looking at right now is tools to be able to record video conferences or video calls on WhatsApp. Because then we can then have the person to say, don't come to our offices. We can actually do the arbitration while you're at your home. And the employer, it could be Nkosikhona, who was sitting at his house, and they don't have to come to our offices, or they are sitting at CCMA office. They don't have to take 2 hours of their day coming to CCMA for the matter to be heard. So how do we, once we've used the technology to make it cheaply and easy and highly accessible, our services that we have to provide, that for me would be a success of the digital transformation. Of course, in all of this, the employee is also important, because we have to make it easier for the employee to be able to do the services that we have to do without that we burden them, whilst we're saying we make it easier for the user outside. It has got to be, the full value chain has got to be easier to do the work that we have to do.
And we wish you all the best with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was Nkosikhona Nkosi. He is the CIO at the CCMA. For more on these videos, click here.